Hello, and welcome to Beering in Mind Beer Reviews. From today, we're going to take a look at four beers from a long-standing craft brewer in Japan. And this is one that I used to see a lot more than I do these days. They used to appear in beer bars in the western part of Japan, but these days I haven't seen them as much. They do have a number of canned and bottled varieties which show up from time to time, and that's what I'm going to look at here. They have a line of regular beers, and then really what are more interesting are their seasonal beers. The brewery I'm talking about is Iwate Kura, and they are kind of an offshoot of a sake brewer called Sekinoichi Shuzo. And an interesting thing about this brewery is actually it's a cooperative of five different companies that make sake to produce this craft beer. They're located in the far north of Japan, in Iwate Prefecture, and in fact they're in the area that was hit very hard by the earthquake, the very large earthquake that hit Japan and tsunami. They did sustain some damage during that, but they are certainly back in business, and they're fine, definitely, at this point. Their beers are also unpasteurized, all of them. Most craft beers tend to be, but some, of course, want to increase their shelf life. Again, I'm going to look at their two of their main lineup beers, and then two of their special beers. The first one will be this one called King Kura. Their cans, they have three beers in their cans: a Pilsner, which we will look at, and a Stout, which we will look at, and a Red Ale, which we won't. I couldn't find it here. They have a can designed by the design company called Nendo, which is very kind of innovative company. You can check them out online, Nendo, and they have done a design for their cans, the cans of Iwate Kura, and they have incorporated several elements into this. So what this says here is Kin Kura, which means kind of gold Kura. Kura is a warehouse or a storehouse, traditionally for agricultural products. But at the top, what they've done is they've made the Chinese character, the kanji for gold, which is what kin means here, into a kind of stylized roof. And then below, kura, the kanji for kura, but with English letters, K-U-R-A, written in as well. So they've kind of combined elements from Japanese and from the Roman alphabet into this design here. So very interesting design. We'll see about the beer here. The other thing is that they call this Kura Kuraft, and they sponsor, or one of the sponsors for the Ichinoseki Beer Festival in late August, which is held every year in late August, and it is one of the premier beer festivals in Japan. It's quite far away from everything, but a lot of people go there, and a lot of breweries turn up. Usually 50, 60 breweries will show up there for a multi-day festival. And now we will take a look at the last of the five Iwate Kura beers. Originally I thought it was going to be four, but I happened to find the Red Ale a few days ago, and so I included that. And this one is probably the most unusual one that we have to look at from them. And it's called Iwate Kura Kaki no Stout. And kaki means oyster in Japanese, and it is a stout, a flavored stout. And as far as I know, we'll find out, it is not brewed with actual oysters, but oyster shells. And Michael Jackson, in one of his books, talks about how oyster shells have been used as a fining ingredient, you know, similar to isinglass or Irish moss, a clarifying kind of ingredient here. And so I don't know how much they actually used here of oyster shells. It is a 7% beer and 30 IBUs, so the bittering is a little bit rather moderate. On Rate Beer, this one has 65 reviews and 3.47 rating out of 5, 83 percentile for all beers, and 42 for its style, which is a flavored stout. On Untappd, this one has a total of 1,892 ratings, an average score of 3.69. I have had this before in the past, but I've never actually rated it or reviewed it. So oyster stouts, you know, you see the name, and occasionally it's there on the label, but it simply the indication is that it's simply an accompaniment to oysters, and without actually containing it. Kyoto Brewing Company actually did make a very interesting brew, which did include oysters. It was collaboration with, I cannot remember, but I had it at a festival, and you could certainly taste the saltiness, the kind of slippery texture. Definitely, it had a very small amount of that. It's very, very interesting beer. We'll see about this one. I don't really know what it actually includes, but let's give this one a go, shall we? The name in Japanese is actually Sanriku Oyster Stout, which is the region from which they get the oysters, or oyster shells. And what do we got here? It is perfectly opaque. A couple fingers of rather dark tan head. Let's turn around the light, see what we get. Completely opaque, cannot see a thing through that. Aroma. Okay, definitely some decided chocolate, dark roastiness. Very pleasant kind of dark roast chocolate note. Okay, and flavor very similar. It has a deep chocolate, chocolatiness. I don't know what. Maybe there's a slight tanginess, a slight umami note, perhaps. Very, very mild. I think it is there. It kind of comes in late mid-palate and near the finish. Yeah, you get a kind of salty sense on your tongue at the end, at the very end here. So very interesting. I'm not detecting anything remotely like real oysters in this, but perhaps a kind of alkaline, salty note. Very pleasant, very tasty. Probably one of the more interesting beers that you will get from this brewery, Iwate Kura. I do believe they export to the United States, and you might find it in a specialty store. If you look around in the Japan or the foreign beer section, you might find Iwate Kura beers there. And this is definitely one you should probably check out. Again, it's Iwate Kura Kaki no Stout, an oyster stout, a flavored stout, 7%, 30 IBUs. And why don't you give this a try if you happen to see it, and tell me what you thought about it. Also, I hope you will subscribe to the channel, and we will keep doing a lot more Japanese craft beers. So I hope to see you in the next one. Bye-bye.